Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Erudition Network. Good evening, Thursday evening. Sorry, a little late today. I had some things going on as I was getting ready to get on here. It happens. But I'm here with you tonight. This is the Erudition Network Interactive Black History and Knowledge Session. My name is Eddie Phillips. If you are new to this program deals a lot with Black history and things you may have not learned or may not know about Black culture and Black history. But we also try to mix it up a little bit and we talk about general knowledge and things like that. This is an education session. And more important than that, it is an interactive education session. So what does that mean? That means that I get on here for about an hour or so and I open myself up to your questions, your comments. We can talk, we can debate, we can theorize, we can do all of these things interactively in the chat. And I guarantee you, by the end of our time together every Thursday evening, you would have learned something or picked up something that you may not have known before. And I do this every Thursday. I am a public historian. I have written, one book, and I'm currently writing another and finishing another. My first book was on early world history, and now I'm doing one on in the middle era on don't know why I couldn't get that out at all. But medieval times. So we're going to talk about the effects of the world in Africa during medieval times, something that I don't think we spend much time talking about, and how Africa influenced other parts of the world. So those are some things that I am working on currently, as well as being on here with you tonight to enjoy this session. So I pray that you will enjoy it and you will gain something from it. So who do we have here tonight? Okay, Sean Anthony, and I see Tina, you're here. Thank you all very much for being here. Every night, every time I come on, I feel like I'm getting a glare on my nose. So you can see me doing all this stuff and because of the glare, but I just, you get that glare and it's disgusting. All right. I'm gonna give a couple of minutes while I grab a book that I wanted to talk about tonight. Give me one moment. Okay. I don't know what I did with it. Give me a moment here. Where's my book at? Usually I would have these things already, but for some apparent reason or another tonight, I don't have it. I'll get my son in the background and look for it. Please share the program if you're new to it. Oh, I know it is. Give me one moment. Y'all. Give me one moment. No, I was getting my book. I got it. You know, we can all hear you on camera, my wife. was a history book. I got it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. My wife was out here trying to help, which is good, which is always good. All right. I wanted a history book here tonight. This big old human odyssey book. You see it? You see it? I wanted to cover something tonight that I ran across, right? I ran across and I was like, man, you know what? We need to talk about that. Before I do that, though, I'm going to share something. I know I seem a little discombobulated tonight, but I guarantee you that there is a method to my madness here. I guarantee you. Give me one moment. When you got all of this stuff and you come on a little bit later, you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to share and how you want to share it and how you want to bring it up. But you may have heard me speak on some of this before, but I want to touch on it because it was brought up again. And I was like, man, you can't say enough of it because it's really ridiculous. All right. All right. So here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a chart that shows all of the hominids, right? All of these hominids. Now, why am I bringing this up again? They tell us that the human evolution timeline is us. And they put things in this timeline to make us feel as if we are related. This is all Darwinistic, or what they call to be Darwinism. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of it is pure foolery. Pure foolery. There is no real connection, and I'm going to say this unequivocally. There's no way for them to say that we are related to Homo sapien Neanderthalis, Homo erectus, Australopithecus. It's a lot of foolery, tomfoolery. But every week, I come across somebody who was promoting the idea of these hominids, of these, I like to call it, monkey men. And every week, you see somebody coming out and saying that these creatures are a part of us. And if you go through books like this history book that I was looking at, Human Odyssey, prehistory, through the Middle Ages, they spent a lot of time talking about it too, talking about the fossils, talking about the things and the remnants and the things that they picked up from these early hominids. Here's the point, though. There's always, in everything that they say, possible. So we get away with putting out this foolery by saying possibility. We get away with saying that man evolved from these creatures with possibly. Now, I saw a study that correlates with the book that I wrote that was saying that Neanderthals were around at the same time as Homo sapiens, which is us, human beings. And that they believed that Neanderthals were bred out as they interbred with non-African. What that means is people who had traveled out of Africa, non-African Homo sapiens. Now, why is this all important? It's important because we're starting to decipher and to see through science and through history that a lot of things that were told to us are false, are false. And they have no, they've been pushed to us by men and women who had a biased, to be nice, mentality on what they wanted to put out. And so I wanted to touch on that tonight as we start. And I was trying to find this book, but I didn't take the picture I wanted to take out here. So we'll get to that probably at another time. But I wanted to talk about those human evolution timelines again and squash that rhetoric, because it just continues to show its ugly head. It continues to be utilized by people. Um, the other thing is, we were talking about last week. I actually put a lot of, I don't just lean to my own understanding. So I put out a lot of curiosities, questions to historians, right? I asked historians who I do see online, there are very few, questions, or anyone who purports to be a knowledgeable historian. I give them the benefit of the doubt and I will ask a question. And recently, well, I can't say recently, it's been a little bit now. I asked this noted Black historian about the Treaty of Ettrick. Now, here's the thing. I know a lot about the Treaty of Ettrick, but my biggest concern, right, is it was a treaty signed in 1713 to 1715 that was able to end the War of Spanish Succession. Now, this is important because you have to understand that the Spanish had the, how do I put it in a modern term? You know how McDonald's, they give out franchises. Well, the Spanish was able to give out a franchise too, right? The Essential, right, for enslaved Africans. They were the ones who contracted out to Britain, to the other nations, and gave exclusive rights for them to be able to colonize and send out enslaved Africans. So it was important to me to confer with someone who said that they were knowledgeable about early slave trade history, in regards to this question on the Treaty of Ettrick. And so I never heard anything back from this person. They I kept asking, and eventually I just said it's not important for me to keep asking this person. I'll just go and do my own. So if you guys remember, I told you many times before about the Esencia del Negro, which was the Spanish crown's rights to start slavery over in the New World and to contract the idea of transporting Black slaves from Africa. Well, due to the succession issues that were going on, that the Treaty of Ettrick helped to end the Spanish succession issues, Britain, and thereby what would become the Americas, gained a lot of territorial and commercial gains, right? And they were able, it's important to know this treaty because that made them able to send slaves in a greater amount to the United States, to our to our area of the Americas. It did not stop the wholesale of slaves in South America, but it did increase. Britain, or the English crown, acquired the territories of Gibraltar. And that is important because that is the strait that allows transit to come out of the Mediterranean. This treaty is highly, highly important because through the Treaty of Eckridge, we were able to see the rise of Britain as a significant power, right? Where they started to dwarf their rival of France. And they became a significant sea power too. This is before our war for independence. But the allowance of this helped to have a lot of commercial traffic and a lot of slave traffic. It increased the amount of slaves that were being sent across the ocean. Now, you would think that a noted historian would understand that and would be like, yeah, I got it. But what I have found a lot of times with people is that when pressed, they don't want to admit what they don't know. And I'm not a fan of that. If you don't know, you don't know. We learn together. We learn together. We grow together. But there's a lot of that out here, a lot of foolery out here. So I just wanted to make that point to you all tonight. All right. Usually at the beginning of the show, at the beginning of the program, what I do is I open the floor to your questions. I see about 3 people who are on the live tonight. Please feel free to drop whatever history question, any questions, comments, concerns that you have in there, as we always do. And I will do my best to answer you so that we can go into this information together. Just requires you to ask a simple question or whatever you're curious about, and we can answer it. We will. Oh, I'm sorry. I was a little tired. I don't know why I'm yawning, but whatever you got, I'm sure you got something. I'll give you a couple of seconds. So what's going on while we're waiting? All these cicadas out here. I see people putting pictures of cicadas out here, freaking out. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for us to see them. You know, they last about, what is their lifespan? I think their lifespan is very short. They only last through I think a month, if I remember from science. There's like a month and then they're gone. So, you know, having them out here, I don't know about people who are drinking them or eating them. That's a little weird, but you know, I've seen that online too. People freaking out and putting them in their whiskeys and their bourbons and stuff. It's a little weird. So you were at that period where they have their periodical explosion, and then they'll go away. Go out there and enjoy them. Enjoy them. Yeah, they'll look weird. You'll see them on trees, and you'll think, "What is going on?" Eric, good to see you. Did you see my comment on your post regarding why America is in South America? Yes, I think I did. The question that he's referring to is, I asked the question. When I asked that question, was it like a week ago, 2 weeks ago? But I was talking about America's fixation on South America in areas like Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, different areas like that. Um, but I think I did see your answer, Eric, and I think I saw the video or whatever that you posted, and different people answered it the best they could. However, a lot of the stuff you all put was absolutely correct on a current issue. Um, how do I put that? Currently, right? Let's just say currently. Those answers made sense, right? Americans' desire for money, desire for capital, desire for power, all of this and all of that. But what I think that many people don't understand is that America has been fixated on South America and these governments long before that because they were a challenge. And so I wanted us to go, what I was trying to get people to dig deeper, to go further, and to look into America's disdain for these areas of the South America, right? Due to the fact of slavery, bigotry, because these countries were major countries that wanted to break the chains of oppression all over the Americas. And if you go further enough, right, you will notice that America put people into places in those countries to maintain some form, if not shadow, of indentured, even after our own slavery ended. And that's really what I was looking for. You know, we say imperialism and we throw imperialism out there. Um, and imperialism is a real thing, but it's a term. It's a term with a lot of different it's a thing with a lot of different fingers to it, right? Imperialism is militarism, fascism, control. You can use imperialism in many different ways to empower yourself over people. But here's the economic problem with that. When the Mexican Revolution happened, the head of the Mexican Revolution, Jose Maria Morelos, right? He wrote to the president of the United States and he asked him to stand with Mexicans and people of South America, the South of the lower Americas, in order to understand revolution, democracy, right? Internationalism. Frederick Douglass, the noted Black historian and civil rights, and Frederick Douglass actually was a world internationalist who believed that freedom was not just for America. So he sided with these countries. In fact, when we look at the issues of the Mexican American War, we look at the wars and the conflicts that went on in South America. A lot of it was because the Mexicans and the South Americans felt that they did not want the further pushing of slavery, especially before 1865. There was a huge push, and racism has a long memory. It has a long memory, right? And because it has a long memory, it's easy for them to continually harass and hinder even into the 1900s. There was anger about how South American governments had empowered Blacks, had allowed slaves to go to there. We never think about the fact that the Underground Railroad ran both to Canada and to Mexico. We only see it one way, people going north. but that wasn't in fact the truth. So I wanted you all to dig a little deeper. I did like your answers. They are absolutely right. But let's understand the historic ramifications too that America has had on these nations. Sean Anthony, why was Nineveh the center of in Africa during the Babylonian period? The center of, I don't know if you mistyped something, Sean, after there. The center of what in Africa during the Babylonian period? Are you saying the? Clarify with me right there. And then we'll get to it. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying there. You decided. Well, I don't know if Nineveh was the center of trade. I don't know if it was the center of trade. But I will say it was a major part of trade during the Babylonian, Neo-Assyrian period. But if you look at where Nineveh was, right? If you look at where it sat, if you really look at all of what we call the Fertile Crescent, right? So if you go from the Dead Sea and you go over that overlap of what we now call the Middle East, right? You go through Mesopotamia and you hook down through Babylonia. All of that was a great area of prosperity, especially for the Neo-Assyrian Empire between 900 and 600 BCE. But what I will say is it wasn't the only. It wasn't the only, but it had a significance because, as you see, it's mentioned in the Bible. It had a lot of things that Nineveh was able to offer. They had, because of where they sat, they could do dyes, um, spices, different textiles, and they could import those things um, from north and from south. And because of the trade, especially on the camel trade, it was easier for them to be able to do that until the fall of the Assyrian Empire. But it was it. I do agree with this. Good question. It was a very big trading port um, for the Babylonian Empire during that time. Does that answer your question? I don't really know. I mean, just basically because of where it sat. But I do think that that's a great, great question. Any other questions? Any other questions? I know we don't have a lot of people in here tonight, and I put you on the spot. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. Do you also see my comments when you ask a question for? I see everybody's stuff, Eric. I see everybody's stuff. If I don't answer you, it's usually because something is going on. As you may or not have known, I have been sick for the last 2 weeks. I actually am feeling better now, but I didn't have a voice. I was dealing with a migraine. I was dealing with a lot of stuff. My wife was telling me to rest. You also were telling me to rest, but I'm doing a lot better. So I'm trying to catch back up with a couple of things. But you can always come on the program like you all on here right now, and you can ask questions. I don't think I ever turn down a question that you all ask. I'll try my best to answer it and give you some reference for it. So please, please feel free. I'm sending out a reminder here because there's not a lot of y'all in here tonight. And it could be that people just didn't remember. You know, you come on a little bit later now and you come home, put your feet up, fall asleep. I know. I know the feeling. If you all notice tonight, I'm not, look, I'm here with you and I want to answer every question that you got. But the truth is, I'm not stressing on anything tonight. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm here to talk about. Right. So I ain't tripping. So let's just do it. Let's just do it. Looking at my channel right now and trying to. Any other questions? Any other questions? Over here, this thing's acting crazy for me. Well, let me type. Okay, don't know why that is, but I am not deterred. All right, I sent that out. Sent it out to a bunch of people, and then people may show up and may blow out these questions that I'm asking y'all. Man, y'all put a lot in here. Why would, I guess you're saying, gold? Why was gold, ivory, and pearls designs that Africans primarily imported from? Because I don't know. So let's not get that twisted. I think what you're saying, why was gold, ivory, and pearls things that Africans primarily they exported to Mesopotamia. Africa is full of gold. It's full of ivory and it's full of these rare materials. So a lot of, if you go and you read my book, you will find that I speak a lot about what was exported out of these African kingdoms into the Mesopotamian and further east to our eastern nations and things like that, even as far as China. So Africa provided a lot of that, not just to the Egyptians, which we talk about a lot. You see a lot of the Egyptian gold, you see a lot of the ivory, you see a lot of the pearls, a lot of the precious metals and rocks, but it went further than that. Imagine you might be fully recovered if you had taken. Oh my God, I did rest. I did rest. Not as much as I would have liked to, but I did rest. Eric, my panel idea was on colonialism, imperialism, modern day versus what we had in the past. I do remember you saying that, and I have no problem. You know, I ask people all the time to come on the interactive. I have almost begged people to come on the interactive and talk about history. And a lot of times I feel I've heard from people who say, well, I don't know. It's almost as if it's a fear of an intimidation issue. Well, I'm not here to intimidate you. I just really would like to have a conversation. Um, Imperialism hasn't gone away. I don't care what we look at. If we look at the Americas, if we look at France, Germany, if we look at England, Spain, Portugal, Italy, these are the old um, colonial empires. They really have never totally taken their paws off of some of these lands, especially in the areas of Africa. And we see that as we see conflicts and how they push weapons and money and issues into African nations in order to make them war against each other. And I think it's a great conversation to have. I think it's something uh, these supposed borders that they put in, they're still having a very big effect on people, right? These Africans didn't have, they had tribes, but they didn't have these borders, they didn't have these cutoffs, they didn't have all of these things that these countries put on them in the 1800s, and we have seen what has happened to that ever since. right? I wanted to talk about it. I think we talked a little bit about it when we started talking about the Rhodes scholars and who Cecil Rhodes was and what Rhodesia was and why people like Dylan Ruth, who went and shot up Mother Emanuel Church, were talking about bringing back Rhodesia, their belief that they own something that they do not own. So I have no problem and talking about any of those issues. I just, trying to get people to do it, to do it, to come on and have these discussions freely without fear. Usually, when I have a lot of people on, I'll be quiet as much as I can. A couple years ago, we did the Dr. King thing, and I had multiple people on, and I just sat there quietly and let them express. It's not about just trying to figure out what I know. So, but I'm down for it, Eric. Anytime people want to do that. Any other questions? Sean, you've been into a couple of good ones, man. What else you got? What else do you got? Oh, I get it. Oh, come on, Haiti. Well, Haiti is a whole nother issue of imperialism and lies that are still being told, lies that turn us against our own, lies that have been fashioned um, for almost 2 centuries now. And unfortunately, um, Americans don't seem to understand, even to this day, no matter how many times we can be reminded of it. If we go pick up our history books, we don't see the connection between the African and Spanish American, the connection between the indigenous, the connection between the South American. We don't see it. And if we really understood it, if we really took the time to go back in that history, we'd understand that those people who we're saying are taking our resources, those are our cousins and our relatives. Those people are related to us. Those people have the same blood in them that we have in us. They got dropped off first. We got dropped off second. Right? So it's like cousins. They drop your cousin off, and then they went home and they dropped you off in the Americas. But that in North America in the United States. But you're still related. You're still related. And that blood that's in you, we don't recognize. We don't talk about. We ignore. So I don't know if we could go further. Um, if we could just really honestly talk about um our connection more than our disconnect, man, I think we'd be so much better. I know we'd be so much better, but I don't know if we want to. We seem to be um caught up in foolery more than anything else. I was talking to Tina earlier today about, I have people who call themselves historians and black historians, and all they talk about is what black person is marrying a white person and what person is doing this. Man, it's stupid. And never in there do we teach our people who they really are. Sean, after you had a question here. Zimbabwe. Why is Zimbabwe Empire known for their impressive stone ruins, and were they known for anything? So Zimbabwe was a great, powerful nation. Unfortunately, what has been hidden from us for so long with Zimbabwe is we don't really know the full power of that nation. And so, yeah, we have stone ruins. If you get my book, you will read about the Zimbabwe stone ruins, and you will see. I think I put a picture in there of it. But truth be told, we could know a lot more about Zimbabwe, but we really have to spend time um, trying to understand our own culture, our own people. And unfortunately, Sean Anthony, we haven't put enough, we have not put enough emphasis in it. We are allowing people who don't serve our best interests to go over and dig up these great nations and relics and then tell us what they mean. Now, I think as we get more and more archaeologists, historians, and scientists who want to see more, we'll do better. But right now, we're still trying. We're still trying to figure out who and what we are. So even though Zimbabwe is a great nation and had great things that they did, we just don't know enough, right? But it does show that their ruins show that their culture was immense, had governments. The great enclosure that is over there um, shows you how the walls and conical towers and everything. So, no, they're known for much more um, as we go and we uncover more. Good question. Good question from the book. Appreciate that. Nothing, people. Nothing. Now, you guys have been asking pretty good questions tonight, and I'm bloviating because I didn't really have too much of a subject tonight, but I am trying to stick with you all and go through some things. Um, but you are bringing up some good subjects, some good points. The 3 or 4 of you who are in here, so please keep doing that. I really do appreciate it. You know, let me say something else. I was looking at my son's finals today. Excuse me. And he was taking tests today, and it disturbs me because what we do is we talk about history in a general sort of place. As I look at the questions that he was getting, like they'd say in the 1900s,
"Your dryer is done."
what happened to such, right? My dryer is done, and you're like, what? That's an entire century. That's 100 years. What do you mean? Um, how did this nation develop? How much a nation can develop within 100 years? Stuff like that, and then give them a minute understanding of what something is. And it was a lot of that in his questions and their lessons that I see that just doesn't teach you history properly. Properly. Let me see what y'all should put. Nigeria is emerging as a great power. I like to explore their history and how they got to today. Is Nigeria coming out as a great power, or has Nigeria now decided that they're not going to be um, put under the rule of outside sources as it has in the past? Nigeria has always been a great place, but the problem is the influences, and then you have to worry about the influence because when you're told that all things, the only way for you to survive is to import, not export, while they're exporting important things out of your country and giving you nothing. I think Nigeria is doing better. But I always worry about Africa not understanding that Africa is for Africans. Like the Americans say America is for America and American power, and like the British say British power. It becomes an issue of you deciding this is your land, your people, your sovereignty. Why are people acting like violence wasn't a thing in past civil rights protests? As if nothing bad ever happened during a protest, such as looting and anything while the protests happen. Okay. You said further, even if the looting and everything had nothing to do with the protest, they always try to connect it, even during Martin Luther King Jr.'s age. But now they act like it is solely connected. So violence in a lot of, if you go back in American history before the civil rights movement, if you were to go back and look at the picketing that was done at companies like Ford and things like that, where the populist movement wanted rights and unions, the rise of unions, you will see that those were violent protests that people had what was called strike breakers and things like that, guys with sticks and some with guns. And there were incidents of union people being shot and killed and whole out things. So those were supposed to be um, peaceful protests to a certain extent, right? The miners, right, who were being uh, uh, um, who were being manipulated and used, they also stood up, right? So there's a lot of history behind that and how people utilize famous incidents, right, where people were killed, shot, murdered. So the civil rights movement is not just one example. Um, what I would say is for every protest, even women's suffrage, there was violence. There's always going to be people who want violence, right? Either against those who are asking to be treated better, or for those who want a certain thing and they are willing to fight and attack in order to get it, right? Um, it is scary. We have seen it. Um, there's so many. I could go on. There's so many different accounts of it, right? So many different accounts of people, especially with the miners. I always about the miners because I remember in 1937, there was a mining strike and they killed like 10 miners, not kids. I'm talking about coal mines. They killed them. And here's the thing: the coal miners were in a situation where they mined for coal. They lived in a coal mining town. The stores were owned by the coal mining companies. So their whole lives revolved around ownership. It's one of the reasons why we have monopoly laws, right? And so everything that they did revolved around um, what the mining company wanted. The mining company owned their home, the mining company owned what they bought to eat, all of that. And so when they decided to cut their wages, right, it affected them wholly. And so when people wanted to fight against that, what they did is there was a major incident in 1937 where police killed about 10 striking workers. So you have a lot of those incidents. It's not just civil rights. It's not just civil rights. And it's something that I think that the civil rights movement brought in was the idea of peaceful um, protests where you could go in and fight against oppression with the hope that you know, if I act civilly, they won't act uncivil. And so that changed the perspective in a lot of ways of how people approach that. Because even during the suffrage, Sean Anthony, you saw that there were militant suffragists who were willing to scuff it up with the police, who were willing to um, be treated a certain way, fight people. So there was a lot of foolery that was going on. I didn't see Teddy's comment. Oh, you talking about Teddy makes a good point. The sit-ins were technically illegal. The protests we see today against our government's genocide policy are being attacked in the same way. Parallels we see. Well, and here's the thing that goes back to it again. You have the right to peacefully assemble. But what happens is, right, is that you get this situation where people, what's the word here? People, they don't want to hear from you. I'm trying to be as PC as possible. They don't want to hear from you. So when they don't want to hear from you, what they do is they try to use the law, a lot of times illegally. It is not always legal, to try to stop you from doing what is legally your right to do. And this is why it's important to know what your rights are and know what you can and cannot do. Now, there is agent provocateurs. There are people out here whose whole design is to go in and they work for the other side to start up riot and anger and foolery so that the powers that be have the right to say you have violated the law. And now this makes the whole so-called protest illegal, which is not true. But this is what they do. And why I have always said, if you go look back at the SCLC, look at the civil rights movement, people knew who was part of the protest. They came wearing certain things. They came wearing their Sunday's best. If you walked up as a hoodlum looking crazy, you're not with us. You're not with us. And it's imperative of the movements then to say, these people aren't with us. Because you have to distinguish between it, or you will fall into a trap. But that is a good question. That's a good point and a good question, you all. Man, we actually made it through this hour. We actually made it through this hour, so to speak. So I'm happy with that. I hope y'all got something from tonight. I'm kind of laid back tonight on purpose, not stressing anything tonight. I haven't really been feeling well, and I wanted to make sure that when I did this one tonight, I could feel comfortable doing it. That's really what it is. Any other last questions, thoughts, concerns? Y'all ask questions. Y'all didn't go too deep tonight. I mean, I appreciate Sean Anthony went into the book. It lets me know my sons are reading my book to some extent, and they're getting something from it, which they should. You know, your father wrote a book. I would hope that you did read it and understand it, especially as he's writing another one. Anybody? I don't like dead air, y'all. Sure, you got something. Something. I mean, we talked about a lot tonight. We talked about the Treaty of Eric. We talked about a lot of different things. So I'm not mad, but I don't know, Eric. It's 4 y'all in here tonight. I think 3 of them are my family. I think we get people that watch later. I don't know, man. I don't know if this is better or worse. I don't know if it's better or worse. You said your colonitis gets home and bothers me around. He can learn too. I'm sure it's things he like to learn also. Why do people try to water down Martin Luther King Jr.'s words so often? Most of the time, they don't even talk what he said about the middle class armies and more, and act like we are completely peaceful and only concerned about racism solely. Well, here's the reason why. It doesn't benefit America. See, when you kill somebody and you can put words in their mouth because they can't defend it. We're getting to a time also, Sean Anthony, where Dr. King knows who marched, knew, fellowship, family of Dr. King are no longer here. They're passing away. And we can't get firsthand knowledge. So what we get is people's ideas of what he was saying. And the best thing for you to do is to not listen to what people tell you socially, to actually go out and get his writings, his books. I heard so much foolery about Dr. King. It upset me a couple of months ago because people were out here saying he was a heretic. I mean, it's so foolish. And you can't, he's not here to defend himself. And people could read so much into something that they lose. They lose, right? You're reading one document of a man's life, and and a lot of them are historians. They haven't read a lot of his letters. They've read maybe 5 or 6 speeches. They'll tell you, "Oh, I really went into." No, you didn't. I can tell you, if you come away with the idea that he was not a man that believed in the resurrection of Christ, if you believe that he was a man who didn't believe in helping everyone, the poor and not just the blacks, um, if you come away with that kind of philosophy, you didn't read enough and you didn't study enough, and you're not being honest about it. What that was only a part of who Dr. Yes, it was only a part. The boys weren't able to be on. They got finals this week, so they were unable to be on. Hopefully, they will be able to do it next week. Ladies and gentlemen, I think. Oh, and if you want to listen, I'm gonna tell you something. Shine, you asked a good question. Since I'm sitting here, I just looked over it. Read his book while we can't wait. Um, that's a good starter book for Dr. King, where you can go in there and you can read about his faith, his understanding. And I really, I really ask you to do that because there is a lot of foolish statements being put out here about Dr. King that need to be countered with his own words, his own facts, not something that people assumed. Another great book to get if you can find it. It's a book that's not easy to find, but they just revision it as a testament of hope. And it's the essential writings, speeches, letters, and thoughts of Dr. King. If you don't have this book particularly, you're not looking at his letters and these other things, don't tell me that you have studied on Dr. King and that you have a really great knowledge of him, because I will tell you, you probably do not. And most of the things that people have said against him, calling him a heretic or whatever, I have found in his writings in that particular book that completely blow away those foolish ideas. So that's a good question, Sean Anthony. Great question. If you all don't have anything else, we're 1 minute outside of an hour, and I'm getting ready to get off of here. Um, I thank you for joining us tonight. This is kind of a laid back episode, but I hope you got something from it. Uh, and God willing, we will see you next week um, for a new episode. And I had to figure out what we're going to talk about. Maybe get some people on. I keep asking. I'm asking y'all. I'm asking the audience. Come on, talk. I'm even trying to figure out if we can put a phone in here or phone line so we can get people to just dial in and ask a question. If you don't want to type it, but we got to figure out some way to be more interactive and hopefully gain more people who are following. And if that means, I don't think I'm going to change the time of the show again, But if that means doing something different, we shall try to explore those different things. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. You don't have any other questions. I will hopefully see you next week, God willing. And I hope that you all are doing, what did you put down here? I saw the big backyard. You had all the boys. Yeah. The boys did a lot of work back there. I did too. It's a lot of land to go over, but we actually did pretty good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of here. You all be blessed. Hopefully we'll see you again next week. And until then, have a blessed one.